Or if we notice that maybe it's getting too much, we might reduce the content so that, sometimes once it's too much, it may not, it may be too complex for you to get. Maybe it's getting too much. Like, oh, when are we going to get to the end? So we might reduce the content so as to cut everything short, so as to reduce the time frame. Yeah. Okay. So last class, we stopped at tidying data. We said that there's, for instance, we look at this kind of data that if your goal is to do modeling or visualization, that having data in this format, in a table format like this, or a wide format where you have many columns, but those columns can actually be gathered into a single column. He said you need to tidy such data. And we are following a proposal from one of the prominent members in our community called Adley Wickham that proposed that each column should be a single variable. So different columns shouldn't be talking about a single variable. So each column should be it should be referring to a unique variable. So, and that's the motivation, that's the standpoint where we are. That was the driving force for the tidying of the data that we were doing. Okay, so since we looked at all of these columns, we realized that it was apart from the religion, it was talking about a variable like income. So we said, so this violates that proposal, that rule. So that means that we should be able to gather all of these different columns into a single column called income. The idea is, why are we not touching religion? Because your religion column is already talking about a specific variable called religion, that talks about the religion of the people. But all of this other column is referring to one single thing, the money the person was earning or the income, things like that. So that way, we need to gather them into a single variable. Okay, so, and when we said to do that, you use the melt method in pandas. So the first argument to the melt method is the, let me run this. I'm not sure if I've run this. Okay, so the first argument to the melt method is a data frame. Okay, the data frame you want to work with. And that's why we are passing P there, because we already, we have the P data there. And then the next argument is IDVerse. So we said IDVerse refers to the variable that is already in the right shape that you do not want to melt. You don't want to manipulate. You don't want to do anything to it. It's already good. So that's why we put that there. There could be more than one. And all these other two, they are optional. If you don't put that there, pandas will come up with a default name of these to call it variable, and if you call this value. But if you want to give it a name, the name for the new column where you are gathering all of those columns to, you can use the var name. It stands for variable name. So you can supply the name there, and all the values that are under the different columns that we are now melting can be gathered into a column. So we gave it a name here. You can give it any name of yours. Here we are giving it a name called counts. All right, so that's where we stopped. That was where we stopped last week. Is it still clear to everybody? Hello? Yes, okay, good. All right. So so we have done that. Let's look at another data set called billboard. So another data set called billboard. Let's just see the first 5 rows to see where we are, what we have, and all of that. So I'm not sure, we didn't do this last week, right? Did we?
We didn't.
What?
No, we did not do it last week.
Okay, great. So now, so we need to discuss now. Looking at this particular data, the billboard, what do you think? Which column do you think, if we want to melt, that we will melt? And the ones you feel we do not need to melt, that are already in the right shape. Remember, the rule is to make sure each column is talking about a unique variable. So suggestions. Maybe I should call on Fumbi. Fumbi, how are you?
That's fine, sir. We don't need to mess artist, track, and time, and date entered.
Okay. So which one? Okay, good. So let me call someone else. Thank you. That's correct. Fumbi said we don't need to melt. Let me add year, artist, track, time, and date time. So are you saying we need to melt all the week 1, week 2, up to 76? Is that your?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Do you all agree with that? I need someone to confirm that. Rafi, yes, do you agree? Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks, Awele. So that's right. You need to melt. We don't need to melt all of this because they're already talking about a unique variable, the year. We know what that is. All the variables there, all the rows they are talking about the year. So, but week 1 to week 76, they are talking about a single variable that we can gather and call it week. Do you understand? And all the values on that, we can even name all those values because they are talking about the number of records, you know, that was released by a particular artist. So we can call all the rows under those weeks number of records. So this is a good opportunity to use. Forget about the NaN, the NaN, not a number. We've talked about how you can treat that, how you can undo that if you have a good understanding of the data. If the data is not an organization data, if it's your own data, then you don't need to worry about specific rules of how to handle it. You can decide to use any of the strategy we talked about, maybe forward fill, backward fill with the average number or things like that. But if you're working with organizational data, remember, you need to understand the data, you need to talk to domain experts. All right. So to do that, let's call this bill long. So we do the PD dot melt. And then the first thing we pass there is the data frame. And then the ID underscore var. So just like Fumbi says, he said we do not need to melt different variables. That's why I'm using a list. We don't need to melt the year. We don't need to melt the artist. We don't need to melt the track. And date, even time and date entered. Okay, so that's that. So we said we want to give all those weeks, want to give them a name called week. And then all those value underscore name, we want to give it maybe num record or number of records, things like that. Okay, so I think this is fine if everything is fine. So let's see what we have. Let's see the add method. Okay, so you can see this is properly formatted compared to this. So it doesn't mean that it doesn't have the NaN, but we can easily check now if we want to check the missing values or things like that. We can easily check now just to see all of that. So we can see that, oh, the missing value is just on number of the records, which is about 18,785. So the data frame now, instead of 81 columns, has now become like 7 columns, you know, things. So this can be used for modeling because each single variable, this is what we call a tidy data. Okay, from untidy data, we've been able to tidy it to become this format, such that we now have each column is now referring to a unique variable, not that different columns are referring to a specific variable. For those who are doing statistics and you are still in school and you are using R, suppose you are using it, in R, you can use the gather function. So gather will also do the same thing. It will help you gather all of those columns together. So, but we are not going to R since this is not an R class. Okay, so yeah, so we can, that's that. Any question on this? Any question, please? Is it clear? Okay, I'll take your silence as clear.
It is clear.
All right.
It's clear, sir.
So let's look at the more challenging one. And this is the last one before I will just briefly talk about NumPy, but I won't spend much time at all on NumPy. So, but let's look at this Ebola data set. Okay, so this one is a little bit challenging, or maybe it's just me that feel it's challenging. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to this data. Look at it carefully, the day, date, cases Guinea, cases Liberia, cases blah, blah, cases, all of that. And then it start again, death, Guinea, death, Liberia, death, blah, blah, and all of that. Do you think anything, in your own opinion, do you think this data is tidy or not? Let me look at someone that, okay. Taiwo, what do you think?
Yeah, it's not tidy at all. It's not tidy.
So why do you say that?
So I think we have countries there, countries for instance now.
Mm-hmm.
So we have country cases in each country, but I think maybe for each day or something, and we also have death cases too. So I feel there should be a way, even though some country might not have a case in a particular day, the data is not still presented in the best format. So I probably think the country there should be maybe a column for the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
So they will probably come in I'm not sure, but I'm just saying, it should probably come in a form of maybe a clean column or something like that. A column for probably we should have for country and probably per day, for day too, something like that. So under each day, so we should not have, maybe if Nigeria have a death case, we should have the value there. Or if there's no, we should probably have it any day, unlike this one we are seeing here. So that's just my own opinion.
Okay, you're already talking as a data scientist or data analyst. This is what data science is about. No. That's what it's about. It's not just about coding. That's why people miss it. It's about reasoning. It's about insight. Yes, someone else. That's a good one. Awele, what do you think? I know Awele wants to say something.
It's still what he said already. If the countries would be, the cases per country should be in one variable, but then the country should also be in another variable. I don't know how what going to separate that.
That's a good suggestion by you guys. So the question now, we know what to do now. So the idea, what Taiwan and Awele was saying is, the rule we're following say each column should be a single variable. And if we look at this is not talking about a single variable. This is talking about two things: cases of death and country. So they are suggesting if we can put a column for country that will list all of the countries, and a column that maybe we'll name it status, that will be showing the status to be either cases or death for that row, and maybe a new column that will now talk about, if it is cases, should be talking about the number of cases, and if it's death, should be talking about the number of death. Am I speaking your mind? Is that what you're trying to say? Taiwo?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
So the question, now we know what to do. So how do we go about, to do that, let's see why I like the steps that we need to do. Because sometimes you need to have a pseudocode. There's something called pseudocode. It's not a code, and it's not really a statement, but it's not really a comment. We can make it comment, but it's in kind of English. what are things we want to do? So we should be able to find a way to split all these columns, right? Such that like we should be able to split the columns such that country is in a single column and status in a different column. So the first issue is, how do we split this? When we first talk about split, which topic were we dealing with then when we dealt with splits? Who can remember?
I think we can, I think strings, when we split based on a, can't remember.
Delimiter, yeah, that's
a delimiter,
yeah.
like the underscore here.
That's great. I like the fact that you do not forget those things. There were reasons why we went through all of those things. So it wasn't just for, because if it was not necessary, you can start the data pandas without knowing those basics, but you will miss a lot. So there was a reason. So yes, we talked about split when we're dealing with strings. So if I have a string now, if I have a string like data science. So if I do str1 dot and press tab, because it's a string, you will see split. Okay, so if I do this split, this will split it into a list of strings. So if we can have a way to split this such that we can remove those underscore, then I think that will be the first thing we can do. But the challenge here is, this is not a string. But the first thing, before we even split, let's melt it, okay? So that we can, let's melt all of these columns first, and so that it will be easy for us to split. So the first thing we do, let's do Ebola long equals to pd.melt, and then passing the data frame called Ebola. So our ID underscore varchar will be what? What will it be? Anybody?
Date and day.
Date and date. Thank you. Okay, that's all. I mean, if we want to give, for now, we don't know the names to give all the other columns that we want to make. So let's just leave it. Let's allow pandas to name it variable for us, because we don't yet know the name we want to give it. So let's just leave it like that. So let's see the head, you know. So this is the melted of variable. So, but you know, this variable is not yet perfect. Like you said, we want to be able to split this so that a country will be in one column, the status of either cases or there will be in another column. We already have a column that is, we just change this variable name from value to maybe count or something. So we could have even called that one count. Maybe we'll call value name. Since we can call this on counts. Okay, so we know we're only dealing with these variables. So this is the one we want to work with. We want to split all the rows to have country in a single column and cases of death in a single column, right? That's the plan. Okay, so but the challenge now is, we said split was used only on strings, but the challenge is, if we select this, the variable column that we want to work with, it's not, there's no split function on it, because if we check the type, it's not a string. Before I show it, what do we call a single variable in a data frame?
Wow.
What do we call a single variable in a data frame? Anybody?
No, talk.
Yes? Guys, I forgot. It's called a series. A series is a single column in a data frame. Okay, so if you check the type, you can see it's pandas series. So it's not going to have a split method, and you can try it. You can put dots and press tab. It's not going to look at what it lists out for you. You can use the arg method, but not split. Not sure we have split here. You can see different things you can do on this, squeeze all of these, STD for standard deviation, but there's no split there. There's no split. So, but different things that you can do there, a lot of things, but there's no split. So what do we do? Any suggestion? Let me give you 30 seconds to think. So
There was a way we could go through each row in the series.
okay. So what are we going to do as we go through each row?
If we go through each row, then what we have there will have strings, right? Not the whole series.
Well, so if we go through each row will not still be, remember, a single column or a single row is called a series.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir.
So how do we do that? I mean, that's a good point. And I'm going to give you guys one challenge, maybe later, and I'll show you how to do that. So, but I'll use your idea of going through each row. But how do we, so yeah, but that's a good point. Anybody who also want to try? Dimeji, what do you think?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can call on.
We can call on
we
what?
can call on str. That one converts the series to string. Then we can now call on split on it. So it will be .str.split.
Okay. So what Dimeji was trying to say, thank you, is that it's possible to pass a series to become a string tentatively. It's not like we are converting it. We just want to pass it. Like it's possible to pass a string, a series to a string so that we can have access to the method on string. So what he's saying is, this is this series, a single variable. Let's pass it to be a string by doing .str, and let's put dot now and press tab. Do you notice all these methods, they are on strings? See split now. Is it clear to everybody? Is it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So it's just a simple strategy that pass this series to a string so that you can have access to any method on the string. So now, if I do this, watch what the result will be. You can see that, but I need to specify, we didn't specify what we want to use. So if we do this now, you can see that it now splits them into, at least we've removed the underscore to, we now have each row now to be like a list of two things. So we can work on this. This is not the final step, but we can, at least we've done the first step. So we can save this. We can save it as whatever we want. If you still want to call it variable, fine. So this is still our Ebola. So we can still call it Ebola long, or we can just call it a single variable. Maybe like, let's call it intermediate because we are not done. Okay, so our intermediate is storing all of this, but it's not a string, even though, because we only pass the variable as a string. It doesn't mean that the result will be a string. For instance, let's check the type of intermediates. You see, it's still a series because we tentatively pass it as a string and then have access to the split method. So now we need a way to get each stuff inside that list. Remember the first, like this, let me, so that you can see what I'm saying. So the first column here in this list refers to, so we can get it out and call it maybe status. And the second part, this part, we can call it out and call it country. So that way, so this is what I'm saying. So we can have status to become intermediate. So to also do it, we still need to pass intermediate as a string. And then we can have access to a method called get. Let's see. I hope this will work. So that get method will help us do it. If this is right, the get method will help us, we get it first. So let's see what's in the country. Since we don't have error, it seems it works. Let's see what we have in the country. So you can see we have all the countries in one place. And if we check the status, we have all the cases and deaths in one place. So it looks like this is what we want to get. So the final thing is just to put it inside the data frame and remove this initial variable that contains everything. So to do that, we just create a data frame. We'll create new variable. So we can call the new variable called status. So if you want to create a new variable inside a data frame, what you can do is call the data frame inside a square bracket, in quotes, give it the name of the new variable. Then you have to give it maybe some value. So in this case, we are assigning these values that we already have. Okay. And then I'll do the same thing for country. They don't have to have the same name. I could call this one status, capital S, so that you don't confuse it. And then I'm assigning the value we already got for country to it. So that's all. The only final thing is I want to drop this original variable. Okay, so because if you don't drop it, it's still going to be there. Like, let's do the head before I drop it so that you can see. So you see, you have the date, the day, the original variable, the count, the status now, which is talking about the cases of death, and the country. So we can drop this one. I already showed you how to drop. So use the drop method, passing the variable name called variable, and then you have to specify the axis to be 1, meaning at the I'm dropping a column, not a row. Because I want to remove this finally, I can set my in place to be true. In place to be true means take effect in Ebola long. Okay, so that I don't need to assign it to a new variable. So if I do this, then let me call Ebola long. Let's show the first 5. So we can even check the head, the tail to see. You can see. So is this what we want?
Yes, sir. I have a comment, sir.
All right.
Okay. So I also found out that we can pass another argument rather than storing status and country. We can pass expand arguments inside our split method. So we just set the argument expand equals to true. So it splits it into 2 columns. Then we can now rename rather than using the get 0, get 1. So in that split method, we pass expand argument.
That's right. So there are different ways you can do that. Yeah, that's one way. Like if you do your split and all of that, you can, like inside the split, you use the expand argument. Yes, there are different ways. That's right. So you can choose that path. Have you tried it?
Yes, sir.
What?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. All right. So is these steps clear, or is it any question on it? Is it clear? Okay. All right. So that's that about that. About it. So the NumPy, I'm just going to be very fast with it. There's nothing, no much thing about it. It's just that Pandas is built on top of NumPy. NumPy means numerical Python. So the reason I'm not going into detail about it is because suppose I'm teaching, let's say, mathematics students, which I know they do a lot of mathematics operation like matrices, vectors, and you do all those things you have been asked to prove, like multiplying matrices, multiplying vectors, all of those things. We can, or your linear algebra, then you can do almost a lot of those things with your NumPy, because NumPy, so, but I won't go deep into that because that's not the goal of this course. Okay, so it's for data scientists, data analysts, and it's not, I mean, I'm not going to deep into mathematics. I mean, those things are useful, but it may bore you if you don't have those backgrounds. So however, so like we call it NumPy, it's called numerical Python. Is the reason the NumPy was created, it was actually to speed up a lot of the processes that we do, especially with lists. It's very similar to lists, okay? But the difference is that a list can store mixed, types, like different data types. Like you can have a list that will contain an integer, a float, a string, and another list. But a NumPy array can only store data, a single data type. If you are putting in you can't store integers or float with a string. No. A NumPy array, you must store a single data type. Okay. So there's nothing much about it. So if you want to do it, just like you import pandas as PD, you import NumPy as NP. And inside that NumPy, you can call a lot of stuff. If we want to turn a list to an array, we can use np.array. So that will turn this particular list, it will turn it to an array. Okay, so that you can have access to the methods inside an array on it. That's all. So like this now, we've only converted the list to an array. So if we check the type of this array one, you see, it tells you a NumPy ND array. N stands for n-dimensional array, because you know in your axis you have X and Y. So those are 2 dimensions. But you can have more than 2 dimensions. You can have 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions. It's just that anything beyond 2 is becoming difficult to view. So each is seeing each of these as a dimension, this as a dimension. So like that, you know, so that's just it. I won't go too deep so as not to bore you. But you can do almost everything you are doing on list on it. Okay, you can add the 2 arrays together. You can add array 1 to array 2. You can add them together. You can do multiplication. You can divide this, all of those things, and you can subtract them. Like I can do maybe results, or I can do add equals to. Instead of doing array 1 plus array 2 like this, instead of doing this, whereby I now have add, to be this. So because that one, when you are adding them, it's going to be adding it element wise, like this plus this plus this, 23 plus 0.5, 45 plus 1, 5 plus 3. We can also use, I think we can use NP. We can use function inside your NP. So you can see you have np.add. So we have add there. So, and if you do shift tab, it takes, you can see, it tells you an idea of what to do. You can see you have to pass in the two variables that you want to add and all of that. So if we pass in np.add and pass in array1 and array2, so you can see it's still the same thing. But this, for large data, this will be faster than when you are doing this plus this. Okay, if the data is very large, NP using the function in NumPy will be faster. Okay, and you can divide. Instead of doing array1 / array2, I'm sure there is a function in NumPy on divide. Is this easy? Okay, so I'm sure you can do a function in NumPy that will help you divide. You can see np.divide. So if you do array1 divided by array2, and then you call on div, you can see. So it's going to divide 23 divided by 0.5 is 46. 45 divided by 1 is 45. 5 divided by 3 is this. 2 divided by 2. So that's just it. And you can do multiply too. And another thing you can do, like if you have a matrix, you can create a matrix using a NumPy array. So if you have a mat, we can actually create np dot. Maybe I import a random. Let me just get a random value, like import random. I don't really want to go into detail, and I'm already doing that. So from my random, I can do my np dot. Maybe I don't even need the first random self. So or let me just do my, okay, or np.random dot. So we can take, you can say, as soon as I do np.random dot, it gives me options of where I want to get the data from. I can get from binomial distribution. So it's all about numerical Python for those in statistics, those in maths, and all of that. So you can get from binomial, from gamma, from normal distribution. You can see it's random normal. So you're going to have different ones, you can see from normal, from different stuff that you can actually get data from. For instance, if I want to get from normal distribution, you specify the mean to be 0, the variance to be 1, or things like that. So a lot of things that you can actually do. Okay, so even if I don't do np.random, if you have, even in your random, I can call on randint or randint. Randint will give me random integers or things like that, or even randn. Okay, so randint, randage. Rand range is, if I do randage 1 to 21, that will give me any number between 1 to 20 or things like that. So there is a lot that you can actually do, and we can manually create our matrix, like using np.array, and then we'll pass in different lists there. Maybe the first one I want to do 1, 2, 5, and then another list I have, let's say I have 2, 4, 7, and then I have 3, 9, 8. So if I do this, this will be like my matrix, okay? So this is like a single matrix. So if I have, and if you check the dimension of this matrix, if you do mat.n, ndim will give me the dimension, okay? So this tells me is actually dimension 2 or things like that, like the number of dimension, like the number of NumPy arrays is that. I can do the shape like we normally do in pandas. So this tells me is a matrix of 3 by 3. It means 3 rows, 3 columns. Let me create another one. If you want to multiply matrices together, the column of the first matrix must be equal to the row of the second matrix. So let me create a new matrix. And this is, after this, I will talk about something so I don't bore you with all of that, okay? Mat2 np.array. So let me just do this, but we need 3 rows and 2 columns, okay? So we want, we want, because the column of this is 3, so that means we only want 2 columns. So to do 2 columns, I only need to just remove one element from here. Okay, 3 rows, 2 columns. So that if we do mat2 and do dot shape of this mat2, you can see this one is 3 by 2 now. So we can multiply the 2 matrices together. So if I ask you to write a code to manually multiply the 2 to give me the product of the 2 matrices, that may take you at least 5 to 6 lines, because we have to loop through each element here. And as you are looping through it, you have to find a way to multiply with this. Maybe that will be an assignment for you to write a code to multiply these 2 matrices together, or write a function that can multiply any 2 matrices. But yeah, so you can do that. However, we can do that with a single line in NumPy array. That's the truth. So we can do math, let me call it math product. I can do np dot. So we have mathmul. Mathmul is matrix multiplication. Okay, so if I do math and then math2, let's see if this will give us the results. So something must be wrong. Maybe I didn't. So this is 3 by 3. This is 3 by 2. It should work. So let's see.
Can you remove that math on that mat2 line?
Oh,
where you are,
maybe. Oh, okay, good. Thank you. I didn't see that. Yeah, so you can see that. So a single line, and if you are good, so your assignment, try to write a code to multiply a function to multiply any 2 matrices. So you can do that, and I know there are a lot of code online. So, but I'm sure you will write nothing less than 5 to 7 lines of code, and you will use loop. But you can see how this remove the stress for you. So that's why I said people doing mathematics, statistics, they will, they use a NumPy. So it's a very powerful tool actually that was built for that, for linear algebra and all those statistics. Okay, but since we are not going into deep, it's not a course like a school course we are going, so I won't go too deep into it. All right. So I've just shown you how to do matrix multiplication with a NumPy array. I know a lot of you don't understand what I'm doing, but is it, or do you understand it? Okay. All right. So this is just to give us maximum, like I can decide to find the maximum value. Like if I want the maximum value in the first matrix, it's going to tell me the maximum value is 9. You can see, and I can even get this, the minimum value. So a lot of things there inside this, a lot of stuff. I remember there was a time Dimeji was talking and he was using np.mean for you guys. So you can see you have mean, you have median. All of those functions, they are there. So if I do the mean of mat2, it's going to give me the mean of that matrix together. So it will do all of that for you. So it's a very powerful tool that you can actually learn, but you don't need to go too deep to use it for machine learning. But it's very good because Pandas matplotlib that we're going to talk about in a few minutes was built on top of NumPy. Okay. All right. So underneath all of those things we're doing, they are using some functions in NumPy. They are using some things inside NumPy. So that is it. All right. So you can play around all of these. I mean, I think you worked on some of these last week, right?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, good.
I think we have finished everything,
Okay, good.
right? I will.
So,
I'm not
okay.
sure.
Any question before we move to visualization? Visualization is very short, actually. Any question? You guys are too quiet for me.
Yes,
Any
sir.
question?
So,
Is it
hello,
clear?
sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Will this video be available on the dashboard?
We what?
This video will it be available on the dashboard?
Did you subscribe to the YouTube channel?
Yes, sir.
Do you get notification when a video is uploaded?
Yes.
And so that is it. So I've told you that sometimes we forget to put it in the dashboard, but you have it. The video is made public. So if you have subscribed to the YouTube channel, then you should have access to it. Nevertheless, we'll try and put it on the dashboard too. Yeah. So, but rely more on the YouTube. Okay. All right. So
I have a question, sir.
yeah, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Can you hear me, sir?
I can. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my point is, why would I want to visualize on public channel when you have like
Okay, that's a good question. But do you know Power BI?
Yes, I do. Because I don't know, it's not less attractive to me, yeah, something like that. So I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
Okay.
Like visualizing data here is not really attractive or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a good point. So Taiwo is asking, why will you visualize data in Python when you have Power BI and all of that? Now, my answer is, you don't have to. You don't have to visualize in Python. Now, there are different tools. When you have different tools at your disposal, so what makes you a good data analyst or data scientist is not the ability to use different tools. No, I mean, it's an advantage, but that's not what makes you a data scientist. It's the ability to know the connection between all the different tools and to use them effectively. Now, you can visualize this data in Power BI, but you can't just visualize, you can't just pick a data and say, okay, and I want to visualize it. So if you want to work with Power BI and you don't want to work with Python, you can even integrate your Python with Power BI. And that was why we intend to put in some Power BI into this course. However, but you should be able to transform your data in Power BI, clean the data, and then maybe do some visualization. Or you clean it in Python, and then you export the data out to your system and then load it into Power BI. And when you load it there, you can now visualize your Power BI because it's about clicking in Power BI. Power BI is not about coding, it's about clicking. Or clicking, dragging, drag and drop, right? So that's in Power BI. So there are different ways. So if that's what you choose to, there's nothing wrong with that. However, if you are working in an industry, remember, it's not about you. It's also about the team you are working with. So there are some times that you are working in a project. It's not a complex, your goal is not to build a dashboard, or it's not a complex stuff. You are working on a program. Let's say the end goal is to build a model. So the visualization is not the goal. However, you may want to quickly visualize the data to see some trends or to see if the data, some insight. Are you telling me you will first take the data to Power BI, then go and spend all the time visualizing, creating visualization that you don't need, and then come back to Power BI to Python again to start come and be modeling? That could be stressful. That could be somehow to someone like me. I can use Power BI, good, that's the truth. But the point is, if my goal is to build machine learning model, and I only want to visualize the data to have some insight into what maybe variables, the contribution of a single variable to another variable, all of those things, or the correlations between them, I don't need to quickly to go to Power BI to go and do that. But if your goal is data analytics, you only want to get the data, clean it if it's okay, and visualize it, or at the end, create a dashboard to draw insight, then you probably use Power BI. Do I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. So you have his choice. You have different choices. Okay. So that's why I won't go deep into the visualization. It's just to give you different tips of different plots that you can quickly create to draw some insight and all of that. Okay, so there are two majorly plotting libraries in Python. We have the Matplotlib and you have the Seaborn. Okay, but the Seaborn is built on top of Matplotlib. Seaborn is more of statistical plot, and so it's a little bit finer and better than Matplotlib. Okay, but you can use the two to create a plot. I'm going to give you a short exercise as we go on. So I'm going to use the built-in data, but anything we run here, you can apply it on your own data or any data we have given to you on the dashboard. So if you want to have access to all the data, the built-in data in Seaborn, you can use this link, this GitHub link. It will give you all the data in the Seaborn library. Okay, so one of the data in the Seaborn, there are different data. We have the ASCOM data, we have the tips data. I'll mainly work with the tips, but let me show you this ASCOM, just a way on how to load a data set. So you can import your Seaborn as SNS, import matplotlib.pyplot as PLT. Okay, so and then from the Seaborn, I have a method called load data set that will help me load the different data set there. So the first thing I have to pass is just the name of the data set. So I know that a data set is called ASCOM, so I can load this data. Okay, so it's a very simple data set. This data set is a combination of 4 different data sets, but still very small. It has just 2 variables, X and Y, you know, and then you can use all the strategy you've done before to explore this data. You can check for more information using the info method and all of that. Okay, so I have a data set I want to quickly load, and I want you guys to do a simple question that I put here. But let me load the tips data. Okay, so SNS.load data set. So I want to load a data set called tips. And then let's check the first file. So you can use this time to be reading the question. So this look at the data set. The data set has these columns called total bill, the tip given by those who bought something from that restaurant, the sex, whether male or female, if the person is a smoker, and the day the person visited there, and the time, whether it's lunch or dinner, and the size of the people, you know, the female, maybe 2 of them or things like that, that bought this. So my simple question, this is not related to visualization. I realized that this question that I gave here, even the last set, the Meiji set did not solve this question. Yeah, so I realized that I think we need to discuss so that people don't, in case you see anything like that in the future. So I want you to create a new column in this data, and that column should store any value in the total bill in this tip that falls between $0 and $1.5. It should give it a tip of low. And if the value is between 1.5 and 2, it should give it maybe middle or, you know, fair. Let's call it middle. And any tip above $2, it should give you like good. So a new column, and that will store between low, middle, and good, depending on the tip given. Is it a hard question? You guys.
No, is someone putting
All right.
that in the chat?
The record. Okay, that's fine. All right, thank you, Yakub. Thank you, Dimeji. Okay, so you can use the plot function. So by default, the plot function in Python will give you a line plot. Okay, by default, it's going to give you a line plot. So once you just do dot plot, it will give you a line plot. So suppose this is about there is a date, index in the data. It's going to put the date on the x-axis and then it can show you the trends there. I don't like this formatting. So there are two ways. You can actually use what people call this matplotlib inline. I don't know if it normally works for me. However, you can always use, I prefer to use plt.show. Once you do that, that will remove all those formatting and all of that. Okay, so that's if you want to remove so that's what the plot is doing. And we can label it. You can label your x-axis, your y-axis, and all of that. I can do, okay, plt.x label to label the x-axis. Maybe the x-axis is just about, I don't know, maybe it's just in beans, and then maybe the y-axis is actually the values of x. So we can do y label, and then put values of x, things like that. So, and then you can even give it a title, maybe a line plot. So you do plt.title, and then we have line plot. So if you do that, that will give you a better, an informative plot. You can see. So this is the x-axis, the y-axis, and the title. So that's that about line plot. So depending on your data, just call the plot function on it. Even there are some calculations you did in your data. Suppose that, okay, you want to find which day, maybe the goal is to find you want to group this data based on the day and find the tip. Remember, you use group by to group by the day, then select the tip and maybe sum it together or find the average. We can plot that by just calling the plot function on the calculation. So this is something I'm saying, but this will be good if you have many categories. This is something I'm saying, like the tips, you apply the group by and group by the day. Then you select the tip given, and then you find let's say you find the mean on it. Okay, so this is what this will give me. If I just call on the dot plot on it, this will give me, you can see, it to some people who doesn't really understand maths, this will actually give them an overview that, oh, from Thursday on Friday, but look at after, so there was like a reduction in the tip given from Thursday to Friday. However, this tip given skyrocket on after Friday. So that means people give more tips on Sunday and Saturday compared to Thursday and Friday. So that means you don't want to miss, you must only, even if you don't open the shop, the restaurant on Friday, you must always open it on Saturday and Sunday, because it looks like that's the day a lot of people visit that restaurant and they give more tip on that day. So you can see, you can always call your plot on it. So for instance, so that's what I'm trying to answer, Taiwo. So instance, these are some of the things you want to quickly derive. You will not, because of this, go to Power BI, take the data there. I mean, you can do all of this inside Power BI because you can connect your Power BI with Python. Okay, but suppose you are not connecting with Python, how do you want to quickly do this? So if this just you want to derive insight from, so that's just it. So each tool has their unique advantage. Okay, so that's it. Am I moving too fast? Is it clear? All right. So what did we use a scatter plot for? Anybody? What's a scatter plot used for?
I think scatter plots is just like all these dot around or something like that.
What is it used for?
I like to check the regression or something.
To check regression. What do you mean by regression?
It's used to check the association between two variables.
Okay, that is acceptable, but which variables? Which two variables? Any two variables? Not the
variables that have similar, that have kind of a correlation between them.
I don't want to. What do you mean by correlation?
The degree of relatedness, the extent to which two variables are related.
Which two variables? I know you are statistics student. Which two degree of relatedness? That's not, but which two variables? Is there any two variables between any two variables? Is that what you mean?
Any two variables that we suspect to be related.
So statistically, you are wrong. Correlation is only used on numeric variables. Okay, it's only used on quantitative variable, and that's why the value range is -1 and 1. So if you write that in statistics, you get 0. Okay, but I love the fact that he said a measure of relatedness. Okay, is how to measure how two quantitative variables, two numeric variables are related to each other. Measuring the relationship between two numeric variables. So take note, numeric variable. The reason is if you don't know the type of variables, you will choose a wrong plot for those variables. So even if whether you are using Power BI or not, you should know the plot for the different variables. Okay, I mean you can do trial and error and all of that, but it will save you more stress if you know the different type of data variables that you can use that for. Okay, so let's look at how to do that in Python in Matplotlib. So let's check the tips data again. So let's say we want to check the relationship between the total bill of a person, the amount you spend buying things, and the tip given. Maybe you are curious that there may be a relationship between them. Maybe you have a null hypothesis or an hypothesis. You are guessing that maybe people who bought more goods, people who bought more gave more tip, or maybe it doesn't just matter. Maybe you bought more or not. It has no relationship with the tip. You can do that. So total bill and tip are two numeric variables. So you can use a scatter plot. So we can do plt.scatter, okay, and then pass in the two variables that you want. So we have a total bill, and then we have the tips. Okay, so that's all. But there are different things you can also put inside. Okay, you can specify the size of the point. Let me first show you the results. So this, and you remember you can label it to know the first one goes on the x-axis. Okay, your x label, that's your total bill. And then your y-axis, that's your tip. Okay, so if you plot this, so I was showing you options here. You can specify the size of the how big you want it to be. You can specify the color. By default, the color is blue. You can specify all of those things. Okay, alpha is like how transparent it should be. All right, so if I do the size to be, let's say 60, and I want the color to be, let's say red. So you can see, it's going to change the color for you. You can specify the different sizes of the point. If you want it to be very big, maybe I put 200, that will become big and all of that. So, those are different options. However, how do we do this in Seaborn? Let's look at Seaborn way. Seaborn is a little bit, to me, is finer and is more flexible than Matplotlib for some plots. So if you do SNS dot scatter plot, Okay, so if you look at what you should have there, just specify the X and the Y. You can even use a third variable to segment the data. Maybe you want to segment it by sex or to know the male or the female, how male the tips given by male and their total bill or things like that. So we can do all of that there. So we can specify the X to be total bill. Okay, total bill. And you can specify the Y to be tip. And then we can specify maybe the data that we're working with to be tips. I don't need to even label it. Let me just do plt.show for formatting. So this will give me, it label it by itself, tip and total bill, and look at it. So if I want to add a third argument there, I can specify the size here too. Okay, you can specify the size, how big you want it to be. Okay, so, and if I want a third variable, maybe I want to use the sex to segment it. So I think the sex should take an object, a text, not value. So, okay, so let's just remove this first. So if we do this, you can see, so you can use it, the orange is for the female, the blue is for the male. So it can actually tell you a lot going on here. Looking at this plot, how do you interpret this plot? Because it's not about creating plot. You should be able to explain what the plot is doing. And that's the mistake a lot of people make in the previous project for, I think Dimeji said, a lot of people created plots, they couldn't explain the plots, and all of that. So, but you shouldn't create a plot you will not explain. So what do you think is going on in this plot? Who can explain this plot? Who want to try? Yeah, go ahead, Taiwo. I can't hear you if you are talking. Who else want to try? Caleb,
Okay,
go ahead.
Okay. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, from the plot, we can see that the male gender gave the highest amount of tip.
Okay.
And I can't really conclude, but I think the high tips were given by men too.
Okay.
Because from 6 to 8, I think just one woman gave a tip from 6 to 8. So that's what I can say.
So what if all these few ones, because if you look at this data, it's clustered around 2 to 6. But if it looks like there are some extreme points, like 1, 2, 3, 4, that are outside all these clustered points. So is it that there are some just like 4 to 5 males that gave extremely well, and the rest, there is actually no difference between the male and female, or you are concluding in general that male gave more? Because
no,
okay.
I'm just saying, like, for the high amount of tips, I'm not concluding like generally. Just for tips that are extremely high.
Okay. Dimeji, you want to say something quickly?
Yes, I want to say that for me, I can see that as the total bill is increasing, both male and female are giving higher tips, except a few outliers when the total bill increased from 40 to 50.
Okay. Thank you. Any female? Awele or Fumbi, do you want to say something? Yakub, you want to say something?
Okay, so I think from the table, I think from the when the total bill was below 10, I think female gave more.
Okay.
Yeah, the male didn't give anything when the total bill was small.
Okay, a lot of insights. Yes, I want a female to say something. I will say something. What can you see?
There is, I don't know how to.
Go ahead, put it anyhow. It doesn't matter.
Well, like what Dimeji said, for bills below like 30, male and female gave tips almost equally.
Okay.
For bills below 30.
Okay. All right. So one thing that is common to all of you is that this is showing a relationship that, okay, the more the total bill, the more the person bought goods, like the more the amount of goods bought or product bought is high, the more the tip they gave, meaning there's a relationship. If you buy more products, you give more tip. However, because we segment it with male and female, so Caleb suggested that it looks like male gave more tip than female. That's not wrong. However, let's see, because sometimes one plot may not be enough. To me, we could also argue that male didn't really give more than female, except that there are some outlier, like the way you put it, like some unusual male, like 4 or 5 that gave more. So that could be what is driving the plot, because I'm seeing like a cluster of points between 2 to 6 tip and 10 to maybe $40 bill or something like that. So let's try a different plot. Let's plot, maybe we should check the tip on its own. Maybe we should check the tip given by male and the female using a box plot. So that would drive me to a box plot. A box plot is used to plot a single categorical plot and a single quantitative plot. So let's try to see, forget about total bill now. Let's see if there's a relationship between the tip given by the gender, whether male gave more tip than female, or there's actually no difference. So let's see. Let me use Seaborn directly. If you want to use matplotlib, it's not direct. You may have to segment this data. Like I may have to select tips given by male in one place to maybe do like tips where the sex is equals to male or female, things like that. So I may have to first segment the data and then plot their tip in each data with each other. I can do that, but there's no point taking you through that because of the time. So let's just do use the categorical plots in Seaborn and plot our X to be the sex. So I'll plot the X to be the sex, and I'll plot the Y to be the tip. And then my data will be the tips data. And then we can specify the kind of plot I want, because there are options here. So I can say maybe we want a box plot. So that's box. So we'll do this. And then we can change the plot. You can, change it whichever one you want. Now watch. Now, if you do statistics a little bit, there's a way you interpret box plots. Now, box plots has 5 number summary. This line, this is called a box and whisker plot. The line at the bottom here is called, that's the minimum tip given by the male and female. This is the maximum tip given by the male and female. This line at the middle is the major one, the average. This one here the bottom of this box, this one, is the lower quartile. And it talks about that 25% of the male gave this, or 25% of the female gave this. This other one here is the 75% of the female, and this is 75% of the male, the amount of tip they gave. This one is just like the maximum value there. And all these outside dots are the outliers, the extreme and unusual values there. Now I want you to look, is there really difference in the minimum tip given? No.
No.
What about the 25% of the male gave around $2? What about the female? Are they similar?
Yes.
Yes.
The average, is there so much difference between the average tip given by the male or the female?
Not so much, sir.
Not so much. And a little bit difference in the 75% of the male gave around 3.9 and 75% of the female gave around 3.8. You can see that there's not so much difference in the, except look at these people that actually affected the plot. These outliers, so outliers actually, they drive, they can change the interpretation of your data. And that's where visualization is very good. And you don't rely on just one visualization. You can see when we did the scalar plot, we wanted to narrow down. That's why we selected a box plot for the tip, just to make sure you are not giving a false conclusion on your data. So you have to be very careful before you conclude and present what you have. And that's why they always work in team, in the so that you already discuss and check whether you're on the right path, or your own conclusion is not, is not too rigid or things like that. So that's why you always work in team. But God bless you that you are the only, in Nigeria, you can be the only one doing everything in the industry. God bless you that you are the only one. You have to be very careful. You have to have a network of people outside the organization that you can also talk to. And that's why we make you work in team, because you can call on each other in the future, reach out, and you can even reach out to me via email or things like that. So make sure when you are working in the industry, you have a network of professionals around you that you can reach out to, before you present, especially when you just started, when you are just growing in the field, before you present, so that you don't present false analysis to the organization, because it can cost you a lot. Okay, so that's it. So they are not too different. So you can use a different, different plot. So this is how to use box plot. We can change this to a violin plot, just so, you can see. So however, box plot is fine. So Seaborn is actually a very good tool to help you quickly do some visualization. You can use a bar graph, a matplotlib like bar, plt.bar, or a count plot. It's used for displaying a single categorical variable. For instance, if I want to see a count plot of the day, okay, the day, X equals to the day, like the days people visited the plot and all of that. And I specify the data to be. So this is where I'm going to stop to specify the data is tips. So you can do that. It's used for a single categorical variable. So you can see that is very similar to what we saw at the beginning here. Very similar, that most people visited that restaurant on Sunday and Saturday, and even a little bit on Thursday, but Friday they are kind of low. Now, if you look at it with here, it's similar, that more people visited the place on Saturday and Sunday and Thursday, but they gave more tip here. They gave more tip on Sunday, even though they actually visited that place more on Saturday. But more tip was given on Sunday. So you can see what visualization will help you do. It will help you gain insights into the data. Things you can't really see by looking at tables of values. You will see them from visualization. So that draws me to this conclusion that data visualization is one tool, one skill you want to really build yourself with if you plan to be a data analyst or a data scientist. Not by the time I mean, you can see the way I pronounce data scientist. There is an aspect of data scientist that is more like machine learning, engineering, AI. If it's those ones, you may not really need this. But if your organization is more on data analytics and they employ you, they say call you a data scientist or a data analyst, you want to build yourself on visualization. You want to develop that skill. And you can use some BI tools like Power BI or Tableau, but Tableau is not free, except you use the public one, but anything you do on the public is visible to anybody online. Or you can use the Power BI desktop, which we are going to introduce to you when the time comes. Okay? Any question before I release you to work on this? For my program change, so we can work on this for like 30-40 minutes if you want to. So any question?